Discover 7 hidden ways to transform your life. Stop the noise and embrace incredible change today. Jessica Harper sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of the day hanging heavy on her shoulders. As a dedicated nurse in the small town of Clayville, a place where reputation meant everything, she felt the nagging pressure of colleagues moving up the professional ladder while she struggled to juggle her demanding job and the needs of her 2 young children. The conflict swirled within her. Was she supposed to let go of the hope for a promotion for the sake of her family's well-being? Eclipsed by doubt, she was overwhelmed by every waking moment that loaded her heart with anxiety. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a call she never expected. The voice on the other end delivered news that turned her world even sharper. Her estranged father had died. The man who had vanished from her life with little more than a fading memory existed only as a ghost that visited her occasionally, nudging her to confront the unresolved feelings of abandonment and resentment. Now he was gone. Faced with the weight of his absence, she felt inexplicably pushed toward a reckoning. As she sipped her cold coffee, doubts rushed in. The funeral would be an obligation shrouded in awkwardness, but what haunted her most was the regression to a past she thought she could forget. The idea of sifting through his belongings sent chills down her spine. What would she find? What pieces of him lingered in possessions? And did any of it matter now? Before she could fully process those thoughts, she began to glimpse glimmers of her father's life through dust-covered photographs and yellowing papers. One document caught her eye, a faded pamphlet detailing a community health clinic her father founded, a place that had once been the beating heart of Clayville but had fallen into disarray. The contradiction flooded her. How could the man who abandoned her also have dedicated his life to helping others? Can the 2 versions of him coexist? This legacy tugged at something deep and dormant within her. The flood of excitement coursed through her veins, but with it came a heady mix of fear. Could she face the very leaders who allowed the clinic to decline? The idea pulled her in different directions, igniting a passion and stirring terror within. She knew she had to act. She couldn't stand apart any longer. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days turned into weeks, every effort felt like an uphill battle. The city council dismissed her ideas. An offhand remark about profit echoed in her ears, swallowing her determination. She hesitated. Was investing her heart into this clinic worth risking everything she already had? Her own children required stability. Was it fair to chase shadows of a lost legacy? In moments of vulnerability, she found tiny shards of resolve, but the looming weight of despair cast an overwhelming shadow. With her mind racing and breath shallow, she ventured inside the clinic, its air stale and thick with the smell of dust and forgotten time. In the cracked mirror of the waiting room, Jessica saw the reflection of a woman both hopeful and uncertain. A woman torn between being the mother her children deserved and the protector of her community. How could she find the courage to walk this treacherous path before her? The stakes grew higher with every day, as she knew that the battle within her was just beginning. Jessica took a deep breath and stepped further into the derelict clinic, her heart racing. Dust danced in the shafts of light filtering through the grungy windows, illuminating the faded memories of what once was a vibrant place of healing. Each creak of the floorboards sent jolts through her body, amplifying the weight of the challenge ahead. She could feel her resolve wavering, but beneath that uncertainty simmered an emboldened spirit, one that began to whisper about potential. She moved with cautious determination, eyes scanning the remnants of her father's contributions. They told stories of unharnessed hope, visions for better health and community care. Could she breathe life back into this institution and honor that legacy? A part of her screamed yes, but another felt shackled by the reality of her current life, a job that often drained her, children whose needs were paramount, and the scars of personal abandonment that still festered. As the days folded into one another, Jessica formulated a plan, mapping out strategies on her notepad during late-night feedings. She dedicated her mornings to research, reaching out to former employees and patients who remembered the clinic's glory days. Each conversation unveiled glimmers of hope, and for the first time in a long while, Jessica felt a sense of agency swell within her. However, that determination wavered as the council meeting approached. Anxiety clutched at her throat, and self-doubt silenced her inner voice. What if they rejected her ideas? What if they dismissed her, just like they had before? With every negative thought, external voices from her past seeped in, criticisms from colleagues, unresolved rage toward her father. Convincing herself to confront her own fears became as formidable as reviving the clinic. With a few deep breaths, she steeled herself, pushing open the doors of the clinic the morning before the meeting. The air was thick with dust, yet it also carried remnants of dreams postponed. She envisioned children running through the halls, laughter intertwined with medical care. Should she risk
it all? She knew that silence would mean surrendering to monotony and regret, and the ghosts of her father's life would haunt her further. As she plotted her presentation, she discovered her voice more robust than before. Rather than merely listing grievances about the clinic's neglect, she focused on solutions. "We can start a fundraiser," she wrote, "partner with local businesses, use social media to draw attention." With each line, she crafted her argument, blending the emotional narrative of her father's legacy with actionable steps. But still, the day of reckoning loomed near. Outside the council chambers, sweat pooled at the nape of her neck, an electric current of fear sparking in her limbs. What if Dominic Hayes, the most influential councilman, continued to object? He had criticized her father before. Could he be the one to finally shake her resolve? The meeting began. One after another, her peers spoke, the familiar din of dismissive comments rising around her. Fear clawed at her insides, a visceral reminder of her insecurities. But in that moment, standing in the stark fluorescent light, Jessica finally sensed her purpose. Maybe words could alter realities, and maybe bringing life back to the clinic was more than just about her father. As she rose to speak, her heart thundered fiercely in her chest, a heartbeat echoing a newfound conviction. The time had come to face not only the council, but the demons of her past that lingered in the shadows, waiting for her to make a choice. Would she conquer or retreat? Would she embrace the risk of failure? Or would she allow the chains of self-doubt to bind her down once again? As she stepped forward, she felt the air crackle, each breath infused with the weight of legacy and the urgency of her vision. With the gaze of the council scrutinizing her, Jessica prepared to unleash the truth that resided within. The cavernous room waited, and so did the future. Would she stand firm in her pursuit of change, or watch it slip away forever? Jessica took one last breath to steady herself, gripping the podium as if it were an anchor. The room swirled with an unsettling hum. The council's expectant gazes bore down on her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. She met Dominic Hayes's unyielding stare and felt an immediate rush of adrenaline, igniting a fire of determination deep within her. Guarded opinions hung in the air like oppressive fog, but there was no retreating now. Not when the echoes of her father's legacy pulsed through the clinic's walls, beckoning her to speak. "I'm here today not only to discuss the clinic, but to reclaim a part of our community's identity, one that my father poured his heart into," she began, her voice shaky but resolute. As she laid out her vision, an initiative to revitalize the clinic, a commitment to providing accessible healthcare, and an outreach to engage local youth, she could feel the Gordian knot of doubt beginning to unravel.
Each statistic she shared, each heartfelt story of former patients reinforced the truth of her purpose. She could see this place, a sanctuary for healing, reclaiming its former glory. Last year, over 60 children went untreated for common illnesses, she continued, each word forging a connection with those who might otherwise remain indifferent. We have an opportunity here to ensure that no child faces sickness alone, that no parent feels helpless. The council members began to exchange murmurs, their wary expressions softening as she spoke. She leaned into the momentum, revealing possible collaborations with local schools and businesses. Even Dominic's brow slightly unfurled, and for a fleeting moment, Jessica felt the relentless grip of self-doubt loosen. But just as this flicker of hope ignited in her chest, the energy in the room shifted again. "And what guarantees do we have?" Dominic challenged, his face twisted with skepticism. "Reviving a clinic like this requires more than just passion and nostalgia." His voice hit her like a cold wave, the insecurities crashing back into her. "What makes you think you can handle the operational demands?" His words festered in her mind, but instead of retreating, she harnessed them. "I don't just offer nostalgia, I bring a plan," she asserted firmly. "Moreover, I bring passion, knowledge, and the community's desire for change. But more importantly, I am willing to learn. I am ready to invest in this endeavor wholeheartedly, to grow into the leader necessary for it, if you allow me the chance." A taut silence fell over the room, her declaration hanging palpably as she dared to believe that vulnerabilities could transform into strengths. The tension crackled, inviting curiosity about what might unfold. As she stepped down from the podium, Jessica felt a rush of adrenaline wash over her. She had claimed her voice today, and the shadows of doubt began to shrink. Yet even in this moment of empowerment, the doubts flickered, a subtle reminder of the many miles still to tread. Her resolve was fortified, but doubt lurked like an unwelcome specter. Would they believe in her? Could she be enough? Outside the chamber doors, the reality of the clinic's situation loomed hefty, and the burden of her past refused to recede entirely. Emboldened by adrenaline and a will to prove herself, she approached Dominic afterward, choosing to confront the man who represented her greatest obstacle. "You doubted my father, but I'm asking you to see the future we can build. I'm not him, but I share his vision," she stated, holding her ground despite the tremor in her voice. The council's decision wouldn't just weigh on the clinic's fate. It was about her journey, even her very identity. Jessica could feel the stakes rising as their meeting concluded. Whatever awaited beyond these doors, she realized it would challenge her to become a version of herself she had yet to fully understand. Where would her choices lead? Would she embrace whatever responsibility came next, or allow fear to drive her back into the familiar shadows? As she left the chamber, that question clung to her, gnawing at her resolve, sharpening her sense of purpose. The real battle, the one for her identity, her worth, had only begun. Jessica stepped into the bustling street, the clang of life thrumming around her. Each passerby, a parent rushing to pick up a child, two teenagers laughing as they shared earbuds, an elderly couple holding hands, reminded her of the very reasons she stood before the council. Yet, with every step she took, her heart echoed more doubts than certainties. Her mind raced with potential scenarios. What if the council rejected her proposal? What if she didn't truly have what it took to lead the clinic in her father's footsteps? She paused, gripping the railing of a nearby park bench, the cold metal grounding her in the moment. She envisioned the clinic, its peeling walls, the quiet rooms that once buzzed with hope. Would she let it slip away? As she drew a deeper breath, her resolve sharpened. The rest of her day was filled with frantic to-dos, yet beneath it all simmered a potent fusion of determination and fear. Amongst the mundane tasks, a grocery run, an awkward interaction with an old acquaintance, a flurry of emails, there loomed an important decision. She had been avoiding her mother since her return. The edges of their relationship had frayed long before her father's health declined, but now, with the clinic on the line, their unresolved tensions felt insurmountable. Could she garner the courage to seek her mother's support? That evening, she found herself staring at a half-empty takeout container on her kitchen table, the faint sound of the clock ticking reminding her of time's relentless advance. The fear of being left without her parents' guidance loomed large, but equally unsettling was the thought of remaining tethered to a past filled with unanswered questions. The last argument they had haunted her, so personal, tearing at the bond she used to cherish. Jessica picked up her phone, her thumb hovering over her mother's number. "Dial it," she muttered to herself. "Call her." Each pulse of her heart nudged her closer, until finally she pressed send. The ringing on the other end was a stark reminder of the canyon between them. Memories of her mother's laughter blended discordantly with their last confrontation, thickening the air in her kitchen. "Hello?" Her mother's voice cracked through the line, a mix of surprise and hesitation. "Mom, it's me." Silence hung heavy on the call, but Jessica pressed on. "I've been thinking about everything, and I want to talk." The conversation that followed was slow, tentative. As they exchanged words, wounds were unearthed and laced with vulnerability. They discussed grief, the agonizing ache of loss, but also the love never fully extinguished. Through their quiet revelations, Jessica sensed a shift, the weight of years beginning to lift, revealing an ember of understanding waiting to be rekindled. "Jessica, I know this is hard," her mother whispered, an uncharacteristic gentleness in her tone. "But your father believed in you. I need to believe in you too." In that moment, Jessica felt as if she was reclaiming more than just her mother's support. She was discovering a newfound clarity within herself. However, she also knew their path to reconciliation was going to be fraught with challenges. As they settled on a tentative plan to navigate these turbulent waters, Jessica felt a burgeoning sense of accountability. It was more than just about revitalizing the clinic now. It was about rekindling the essence of her family legacy. Later that night, tossing and turning in bed, she contemplated the coming council meeting that hung menacingly over her like dark clouds. How could she harness her freshly ignited passion and newfound partnership with her mother into a fortified approach? Just as doubt crept back in, a realization struck her. This journey wasn't merely hers to carry. Her father's legacy was intertwined with her own growth, and in the kaleidoscope of healing intersecting with personal discovery, a profound revelation settled in. She must step into her father's shoes, not to fill them, but to carve her own niche in a world already filled with his footprints. The next morning, sporting a fresh resolve, Jessica prepared for what lay ahead. She would not only fight for her vision, but also confront the insecurities that gnawed at her spirit. The upcoming council meeting loomed larger than before, now a proving ground for not just her ideas, but for the voice of a renewed sense of self. As she gathered her materials, a text from Dominic flashed on her screen, an invitation to discuss her proposal further. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Would she accept this as an opportunity for collaboration, or was it just another impasse? With a firm grip on her convictions, she typed her response carefully, her resolve crystallizing in that moment, ready for whatever challenge awaited her. The choice she made in the next few moments would set the course for everything she hoped to create, reaffirming not only her professional ambition, but echoing the deep-seated personal transformation she was undergoing. What would this new confrontation reveal? Did she truly have the power to mold her own destiny? Only time would tell. The day of the council meeting dawned with an electric mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Jessica woke early, her thoughts racing even before the sun broke through the drawn blinds. As she stood in front of her mirror, she adjusted her blouse, the fabric almost suffocating her ambition. What if she faltered? What if her words failed her? She shook her head, forcing herself to breathe, to focus on the image she wanted to portray. A woman not merely trying to live up to her father's legacy, but as an empowered leader ready to take the reins. The drive to the council chamber was shadowy in the early morning light, each turn reflecting the tumultuous path she had taken. With every stoplight that changed, doubts crept in. Would they see her as competent or merely her
father's daughter? Would they listen to the new vision she sought to bring to the clinic, or scoff at the ideas of a novice? Upon arriving, the imposing structure of the building loomed above her, a physical manifestation of the power dynamics she was about to face. As Jessica walked through the sprawling halls, each step felt as if she were walking into the battlefield of a war not yet won. Inside the meeting room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Council members buzzed like bees, making decisions she could only dream of influencing. She set her materials down on the polished table, the echoes of her preparations flickering before her like scattered notes of a song not yet mastered. She caught sight of Dominic, and their eyes met. His nod of acknowledgement instigated a momentary sense of solidarity, but the comfort swiftly dissipated as the council chair called the meeting to order. As she began her presentation, the words flowed from her with fervor, her passion ignited by her recent revelations about family and legacy. The audience listened, but their expressions remained inscrutable. A few questions flared up, sharp and pointed, testing the nerves she had so painstakingly crafted. Each inquiry felt like a push and pull between the past and her desire to forge a new future. She responded with conviction, aligning her father's principles with her own emerging vision. But as the questions grew more personal, targeting her motivations and qualifications, the air became charged with an uncomfortable intensity. "Do you truly believe you can manage this clinic?" one council member directly challenged, the skepticism in his tone biting. Jessica steadied her breath, feeling the old surface-level insecurity itching to resurface. This was a moment of revelation, a confrontation she had anticipated but dreaded. "I've spent months preparing," she started, her voice steadier than she felt. "Not just with plans for the clinic, but truly understanding the impact it has had on this community. I want to build on that foundation with new energy." The murmurs around the room suggested mixed reactions, and Jessica could feel the collective judgment weighing heavily. She focused on Dominic, whose reassuring presence nudged her forward. "I can't do this alone. I've reached out to those who understand the clinic's needs far better than I ever could at this stage, including many of you." That admission was a chisel breaking into her own facade. It was a moment that revealed more than just her professional ambition. It showed her willingness to be vulnerable, to learn from others, embracing collaboration, a radical shift from the solo path she once thought necessary. As she wrapped up her presentation, the silence was deafening. Anticipation mixed with uncertainty hung in the air like a tightly strung bow ready to snap. She caught Dominic's eye. His flicker of hope rivaled her own dread. Just as the chair began to speak, a plan arose within her, a daring initiative that had sparked in her newfound bravery. What if, she thought quickly, she proposed an open forum with the community, inviting all stakeholders, the ones who would truly breathe life into the clinic? It was bold, potentially risky, but it would root her plans in a foundation broader than her own. As the momentum swelled in her mind, she prepared to voice this new idea, a leap into the unknown that could redefine everything. "Before I conclude," she interrupted softly, her heart pounding with the weight of honesty and fear, "I'd like to propose initiating an open dialogue with our community. Their opinions matter. Their needs are what we should prioritize." The chair paused, the room frozen in anticipation. Had she just stepped into the light of true leadership, or had she invited more criticism than she could handle? The tension was sharper than before. Every pair of eyes bore into her, watching for her next move. The moment of truth lay ahead, with her future hanging in the balance. This decision could alter the trajectory of her fight for her father's legacy, but would it be empowering or a miscalculation? Whatever awaited, the path of discovery had just taken a thrilling, unpredictable turn.
The silence lingered, a tangible weight pressing down on Jessica's chest. Had her bold proposal landed with impact, or had she merely summoned a storm of dissent? The eyes around the table, once indifferent, now reflected an array of expressions: curiosity, hesitation, and perhaps skepticism. A bead of sweat trickled down Jessica's spine, but she held her ground, knowing she had crossed a threshold that could define her. A member of the council cleared his throat, breaking the uneasy quiet. "And what exactly do you envision for this open dialogue?" he asked, tilting his head slightly, as if trying to decipher her intent. His tone was skeptical, the inflection a careful balance of challenge and interest. Jessica seized the moment, her thoughts racing. "I imagine a series of forums," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "In these sessions, we can invite patients, families, and even local businesses to share their experiences and concerns. It's essential that we listen, not just to understand, but to adapt and innovate from real feedback." The murmurs resumed, but this time they carried a hint of discussion rather than outright dismissal. Jessica caught Dominic's eye, and his expression seemed to urge her forward, a quiet encouragement pushing her towards her nascent vision. "What makes you think they will engage?" another member interjected, folding his arms. "People are busy. They won't bother to come." Jessica felt a quickening inside, her determination crystallizing. "I think we often underestimate how much people care about their community's health care. We need to remind them that their voices matter." With each word, she felt layers of self-doubt shed, revealing a fiercer version of herself. It could be a platform for trust building. If we show them we truly care and are willing to change, I believe they will engage. The chair leaned back, arms crossed, his expression impenetrable. Jessica braced herself, knowing that while she had sparked a glimmer of interest, it could just as easily be extinguished by the council's entrenched dynamics. "Let's talk about execution," he finally said, voice deep and deliberate. "What about the logistics of this forum? These are not trivial events." Jessica inhaled deeply, feeling a profound responsibility settle onto her shoulders. "We could involve local organizations to aid in outreach," she began, leveraging her internal network of contacts. "I'll take lead on arranging the first session, and I suggest we include a survey for additional feedback to deepen the conversation." The mood in the room began to shift. A few members furrowed their brows in thought, while others exchanged glances. Jessica sensed the tide turning, even if imperceptibly. The concept of collaboration helping to fuel the clinic's vision started to take form, pushing against the aged and rigid structure she faced. As the conversation flowed, Jessica instinctively fell into a role that required her to think on her feet. When another council member raised concerns about potential backlash if patients felt unheard, she responded swiftly. "That's even more reason to initiate this dialogue. Allowing for feedback is not a weakness but a strength. We need to build resilience by inviting those critiques. Their concerns are valid, and if we ignore them, we risk losing their trust altogether." The chair's gaze softened slightly. The shift in atmosphere was evident, his eyebrows furrowing in contemplation. Perhaps even he was beginning to grasp the potential of her approach. Just before the meeting drew to a close, silence enveloped the room as the chair addressed her. "You've made a compelling case, Jessica. However, I caution you, the risks of this proposal are significant, and if it fails, you'll not only face the council's scrutiny, but also the community's discontent." Her heart raced. The weight of the entire endeavor pressed down on her yet again. "I understand that, but I can't lead from fear. If I'm to honor my father's legacy, I need to embrace risks and strive for transparency." The chair nodded slowly, and Jessica's resolve solidified. She had either caught a thread of support or wove a tapestry of doubt, but one thing was certain: there was no turning back now. With the meeting adjourned, as Jessica stepped outside into the crisp air, the world felt different. She had risked revealing parts of herself she had kept hidden, a burgeoning leader willing to traverse unsteady ground. Yet, despite her victories, there lay an unsettling anticipation deep within. She knew that the forum would draw out not just the community's input, but all the raw vulnerabilities that came with true leadership. What would it expose about her own capacities? As she prepared for the next steps, the voices of doubt whispered furiously. Was she ready for what lay ahead? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear: Jessica was embarking on a profoundly transformative journey that promised to reshape not only the clinic, but herself in ways she had yet to comprehend. A new challenge loomed ahead: the first forum. Would she truly be able to facilitate an open dialogue, or would her intentions unravel before her eyes? Jessica's pulse raced as she walked away from the council meeting, each step echoing against the pavement, and the anticipation of the upcoming forum gnawed at her insides. The stakes felt higher than ever, and the path ahead was blurry, filled with uncertainty. She had initiated a conversation meant to inspire, but the question lingered: was she truly prepared for the reality of leading it? As she made her way to the small office where she worked, doubt spiraled into her thoughts. What if the voices she aimed to amplify drowned hers out instead? What if those who attended were angry or disillusioned, ready to push back against whatever changes she sought? The struggles of her past echoed in her mind, reminding her of moments she had felt eclipsed by louder, more seasoned voices. Turning the key in the lock, Jessica entered the office, ready to focus. She needed a plan. First, she sat at her desk, pulling out a notepad. Writing always comforted her. It organized thoughts that swelled in her mind like a tempest. She began drafting a preliminary outline for the forum, contemplating the questions she wanted to ask, the themes to emphasize, and the atmosphere she aimed to create. Who would moderate? How would she ensure every voice was heard without diminishing her authority? Dividing the questions into categories: issues of accessibility, quality of care, and community involvement, she noted any points that warranted deeper exploration. Yet, for every proactive step, her mind flashed images of potential failure. What if she stumbled under the pressure? What if people left feeling unheard? With each scribble, her anxiety morphed into a determination. She would not let the specter of doubt overshadow her resolve. She called Dominic, her steadfast ally, who had supported her proposals from the outset. As the phone rang, she practiced courage, reminding herself that vulnerability could ignite strength. "Dominic, I'm feeling overwhelmed by everything. Do you have a moment?" "Of course," he replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "What's on your mind?" "I think I'm second-guessing myself again. What if the forum doesn't go as I planned? What if I can't handle the feedback?" A sigh escaped her lips, her tension evident. "Listen, part of being a leader is embracing uncertainty. It's important to crack open your vision, to let in those voices, even if it feels uncomfortable. That's where real change happens," he emphasized. Noticing a shift in her emotions, she felt a small flame reignite. "You're right, and I need to lean on others for support too, not just bear this alone." The realization was like a breath of fresh air, instilling clarity. As they continued to brainstorm, Jessica grasped the full scope of the challenge. Perhaps chaos would unfold in the forum, but within that chaos lay potential, growth, and understanding. She envisioned a space not just for listening, but for learning, for allowing herself to be vulnerable in the process. After hanging up, she took a moment to breathe deeply. Her phone buzzed. The invitation emails needed drafting. Familiar anxiety threatened to choke her thoughts, but she regained her focus, knowing her intentions were valid. These forums would serve as a bridge between her vision and the community they served. The next few days were a blur of preparation and collaboration. Jessica reached out to local organizations, drawing upon her connections, each conversation reinforcing her confidence. Yet, as excitement built, so did an undercurrent of apprehension. The morning of the forum arrived, and the air felt electric. Preparing herself, she gathered her notes, pacing back and forth, feeling the palpable tension. What would unfold in this new arena? Just as she felt ready to embrace uncertainty, her phone buzzed again. A familiar face appeared on the screen, an old colleague whose reputation for scrutiny flashed through her mind. The text simply read, "Thinking of attending the forum, looking forward to seeing how it turns out." A mix of admiration and dread swirled within her. Would they prove to be an ally or an adversary? Jessica took a deep breath, clutching her notes tighter. She looked out the window, spotting the clouds churning in the distance. What lay ahead was tumultuous but filled with promise. She was ready to confront her fears, but would the weight of expectations prove too heavy? As she stepped out into the fray, she knew one thing. This was only the beginning, and what happened next would either forge her leadership or break it entirely. Would she emerge stronger, or would those unrelenting doubts become her downfall? As Jessica stepped into the brightly lit hall, the buzz of anticipation hit her like a wave. The space was nearly full, with clusters of people chatting animatedly, their discussions a cacophony of emotions. She felt the weight of all those eager faces. Every smile or skeptical frown hung in the air, demanding her attention. With each step, she questioned her every move. The mantra of doubt resurfaced, but she fought to keep it at bay. The moderator she had selected earlier, a seasoned professional with a calm demeanor, stood beside her, offering a reassuring nod as he reviewed his notes. But his confidence only magnified Jessica's insecurities. Could she truly guide this forum? Her throat felt tight. Gathering herself, she initiated a brief meeting with him, clearly feeling the urgency of aligning their visions. "I want to ensure we facilitate a genuine dialogue," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I also fear overshadowing the conversation. I need to be present without losing my footing." His brows furrowed slightly. "Your role is to set the tone and create a safe space for participants. Share your perspective, but allow others to contribute fully. Remember that leadership isn't about domination, it's about connection." His words sparked a flicker of clarity for Jessica. Perhaps her other fears, of being drowned out or criticized, stemmed from the false belief that showcasing her voice meant diminishing others. Relinquishing that perception would be her greatest strength. As the event kicked off, Jessica took a deep breath, allowing herself to sink into the moment. She launched into her opening remarks, speaking passionately about the themes they would navigate together. The room quieted, and she saw engaged faces ahead, eyes filled with curiosity, reflecting the possibilities yet to be uncovered. However, the moment was fleeting. From the back, a familiar face emerged, her old colleague, now with an expression that seemed to challenge her directly. "What steps are you taking to ensure transparency in this process?" they asked, their tone laced with skepticism. The room held its breath, anticipation palpable. Jessica's heart raced. Fear threatened to grip her, but she summoned her composure. "Transparency is fundamental to our efforts. Today is about listening, not just to respond, but to understand the diverse experiences at play." The confidence in her answer surprised even her. There was no crumbling under the weight of scrutiny. Instead, a sense of purpose anchored her. She was here to foster inclusiveness, and as she looked around the room, a transformation in her mindset began to crystallize. She was in control of the narrative, hers and theirs. As discussions progressed, voices filled the air, weaving stories and frustrations into a complex tapestry of emotions. Jessica felt exhilarated by the energy. This was not merely her forum anymore. It belonged to everyone present. Facilitating this exchange rekindled her resolve, allowing her to embrace discomfort as a catalyst for growth. However, an unsettling thought nagged. Would it all culminate in fruitfulness or chaos? Each person voiced their insights, and Jessica watched their reactions, trying to gauge the shared dynamics unfolding. Would they find common ground or become further divided? As the hours passed, Jessica felt more at ease, yet the weight of her earlier doubt lingered in the background. As she prepared for the closing remarks, the question remained whether she had sufficiently met their needs and expectations. Feeling emboldened, Jessica expressed her genuine appreciation for their participation. But as she scanned the room, she noticed the earlier skeptics staring intently at her, a mix of curiosity and judgment cast over their features. What conclusions were they drawing from the day's discussions? Jessica closed her eyes momentarily, grounding herself. No matter the outcome, she had sparked a dialogue she now had to nurture. "Today has been only the beginning," she announced, her voice resonating with newfound conviction. "This dialogue matters, and I invite each of you to continue sharing. Reach out. Your voices deserve to be heard consistently." As applause filled the hall, Jessica felt the weight of her earlier fears shift, giving way to excitement and uncertainty. But doubt still lingered. What would happen once the attendees left? How would they perceive her efforts outside the safety of this environment? With her heart pounding, she witnessed those beginning to exit, anticipation ebbing as uncertain thoughts twisted in her mind. Was this a start of something transformative, or had her efforts missed the mark? Reinvigorated, yet uncertain, she steeled herself. The next steps were crucial, and she knew she needed to seek feedback to sharpen her approach. Engaging vulnerable minds could lead her to profound insights. As she surveyed the room, a familiar face approached her. It was one of the attendees with a determined look, an opportunity to gather perspectives. Would this conversation propel her into a deeper understanding of her role, or further entrench her doubts? Jessica braced herself, ready for the next chapter in her journey. As the applause faded, Jessica felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She focused on the face moving toward her, an attendee whose piercing gaze hinted at something more than mere curiosity. The figure stopped before her, exuding not only determination but also underlying expectations. This was the moment Jessica recognized the price of her courage. They wanted accountability. "Your remarks were compelling," the attendee began, the corners of their mouth hinting at a potential smile. "But I can't help but wonder, what happens next? How will you ensure this conversation doesn't stall? We need more than just words." Jessica inhaled slowly, the challenge setting in. It wasn't just about facilitating dialogue, it was also about sustaining it, about keeping the momentum alive in a world where conversations often faltered. "You're absolutely right," she replied, her heart racing. "I want to create a tangible plan for follow-up discussions and actionable steps that could lead to real change." The attendee nodded, their expression softening slightly, but the challenge had been laid bare. She could feel the expectations ripple around her, an invitation transformed into a demand. The fear of fading back into the background clawed at her, but Jessica reminded herself of what she'd learned earlier. Connection and trust would fortify her resolve. "Have you ever considered hosting a smaller follow-up session?" the attendee suggested, a flicker of enthusiasm lighting their eyes. "Something interactive where participants can share their experiences and propose actionable steps." That simple question ignited a spark within Jessica. What a brilliant idea! Creating a more intimate space can drive deeper engagement. It makes it easier for people to express their thoughts and share their journeys. A plan formed in her mind, each detail knitting together a potential roadmap forward. Suddenly, however, doubt crept in. The possibility of failure loomed large. Would she have the ability to translate this energy into something lasting? Pushing those thoughts aside, she refocused on the attendee, desperate to exude the confidence she felt dwindling. "I'll make it happen," she declared, the conviction in her voice a shield against her uncertainty. As the conversation continued, the attendee shared various ideas on maintaining engagement, which allowed Jessica to explore territory where she had previously hesitated. Each suggestion propelled her further from fear, coaxing her to embrace possibilities she had not considered. This exchange became a pivotal moment of personal growth. She realized the power of collaborative ideas could alleviate her self-imposed burdens. When they finally parted ways, Jessica felt buoyed, a newfound energy spurring her onward. The idea of leading a series of follow-ups felt daunting yet exhilarating. Each small step forward would require her to stay engaged, pivoting her fears into actionable endeavors.
She spent the following days reflecting on her initial forum, analyzing patterns in the discussions and the reactions she witnessed. Beyond surface-level apprehensions, she discovered hidden motivations within herself, an unyielding passion to create a supportive community where voices could be unified, valued, and respected. The thought ignited a fire in her chest. But Jessica also grappled with a nagging weight, the fear of not being enough, of failing to create the change she so desperately wanted to see. The looming deadline for the first follow-up session pressed on her consciousness, a constant reminder of the task at hand. As she planned each detail, she assessed her own strategies, realizing she would need the same courage she had summoned in that hall to lead the follow-up. On the eve of the session, she meticulously arranged her thoughts, preparing questions that would invite open discussions, crafting an agenda that felt authentic yet purposeful. As she drifted into a restless sleep, her mind flickered with visions of potential outcomes, both exhilarating and overwhelming. What if she failed to engage her participants? What if her plan unraveled? Yet among her fears, a poignant thought emerged. Wasn't this process, with all its uncertainties, precisely where meaningful transformation lay? Staring at the ceiling, she realized the answer to both her doubt and hope lay not in control, but in vulnerability. She had to embrace not only her strength, but also her willingness to confront her limitations, allowing others a shared space under her guidance. The pivotal moment approached, her heart racing with anticipation. Would this session solidify her newly forged commitment to authentic engagement, or would it expose the cracks in her foundation of self-assurance? As dawn broke and confidence melded with anxiety, Jessica stood at the edge of a new chapter, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In that fleeting silence, she sought clarity in one final thought. Could this be the moment that unlocked the transformation she so fervently chased, the catalyst that defined her professional evolution? With an uncertain yet eager heart, Jessica prepared to step into what would be a defining crossroads. Each breath whispered beneath the weight of anticipation. What kind of leader would she prove to be at the first follow-up session? And would the feedback from her peers affirm her developing vision or push her deeper into self-doubt? The day of Jessica's first follow-up session dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions churning within her. She woke early, the sunlight streaming through her window, illuminating the path ahead, a path filled with uncertainty but also ripe with opportunity. Armed with an agenda and the lessons learned from the initial forum, she was determined to cultivate a genuine conversation. As she stepped into the small, community center for the follow-up session, she felt the familiar tension knot in her stomach. The room was arranged in a circle, fostering an intimate atmosphere designed for collaboration. Participants began trickling in, some familiar faces from the first forum, others newcomers drawn by the spirit of community. Each person represented a voice, a story waiting to intertwine with her vision. Jessica greeted them with a warmth that belied her anxiety, engaging each one with genuine intent and curiosity. She could see their eyes reflecting both hesitation and eagerness, mirroring her own inner dialogue. Could she maintain this momentum? Taking a deep breath, she opened the session, welcoming everyone and reiterating the importance of their shared experiences. "This is a space for us to listen to each other, to share concerns and hopes," she stated, her voice steady yet tinged with intensity. "Together, we can shape the future of our clinic and truly honor the legacy my father left behind." As the discussion began, Jessica allowed herself to step back, becoming a facilitator rather than just a spokesperson. Participants shared heartfelt stories, laying bare their experiences and struggles with the clinic. From mothers expressing fear for their children's health to elderly patients reminiscing about a time when the clinic thrived, the emotional landscape unfolded before her, rich with authenticity. Jessica listened intently, asking probing questions that invited deeper connections. She noted recurring themes: accessibility, empathy, and the dire need for reliable communication. Each voice was a brushstroke on a canvas that was slowly taking shape. An idea crystallized in Jessica's mind. These conversations were not merely feedback, but the scaffoldings on which she could build lasting change. Midway through the session, a middle-aged man, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. "Jessica," he began, his voice breaking slightly, "I need to say that I felt unheard for too long, both by this clinic and our community. Your efforts give me hope, but are they sincere? Will your changes truly listen to us?" The air grew heavy with tension, and Jessica met his gaze, feeling the weight of his doubt. "I'm here to learn," she replied candidly, the vulnerability evident in her tone. "I understand I have to gain your trust, and I will work tirelessly to earn that. But I need your input. Can we work together to draw a path forward?" The man nodded slowly, as if wrestling with his emotions, but other participants nodded along, their expressions softening. For the first time that day, Jessica felt a surge of confidence. This was her moment to demonstrate that she could indeed lead, and lead compassionately. As the session progressed, they collectively brainstormed actionable solutions. Ideas flowed: community health days, outreach programs, and enhanced communication channels. They even outlined specific targets that could easily be tracked moving forward. Stepping into the role of facilitator, Jessica encouraged everyone to contribute, eliciting contributions from those who had remained silent, reframing their fears as pivotal components of growth. As the session strengthened in momentum, Jessica experienced an electric sensation of solidarity. She realized that leadership was not about casting a long shadow over others, but about illuminating their paths. With their collective commitment, they crafted a plan that resonated with each participant's aspirations. At the close of the session, Jessica stood before her peers filled with pride. The dialogue that had blossomed was not only a reflection of a shared vision, but a testament to her transformation. The fear that had once shackled her began to dissolve, revealing a woman who was not merely her father's daughter, but a leader in her own right. As she expressed her gratitude, a newfound lightness accompanied her words. "Thank you all for trusting this process. Your willingness to engage means everything to me, and together we're embarking on a journey to revive this clinic, not just as a facility, but as a sanctuary for our community." The applause that followed rippled through the room, a chorus of validation. Jessica felt her heart swell. She had not only engaged her community, she had also reclaimed a fragment of herself. A passionate advocate, a genuine leader committed to real change. The genuine dialogue ignited by that first follow-up conversation became the catalyst for transformation, both personally and professionally. Jessica now stood with solid confidence, ready to face the complexities of her future, determined to drive this momentum forward. Standing taller than she ever had, she understood that true leadership thrives on collaboration, compassion, and authenticity. As she left the community center that day, the sun was setting on the horizon, casting a golden hue, a promise of hope and renewal. Jessica Harper had embarked on a profound journey of growth, not just toward revitalizing a clinic, but in forging her identity. She proved to herself that she could conquer doubts, bridge divides, and create spaces for healing, not only in Clayville, but within her own heart. This newfound clarity and sense of accomplishment were not just for her father's legacy, but for her children, her daily inspiration. Now she could confidently forge a path that would leave a lasting impact. Jessica Harper was not only a nurse, she was a leader who had found her voice, solidified her competence, and risen to meet her true potential. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you won't miss incredible emotional stories like Jessica's transformation and many more. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the community. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts. What does Jessica's journey mean to you? Your engagement drives this movement forward.